Hi everyone, I'm Bia, and welcome back to Cardiac Radio for Teens. For those of you who don't know, Cardiac Radio for Teens is a place where teens can come together with other teens to learn about Spiritist teachings and topics in a way that makes more sense to us and is more relatable to us as teenagers in today's society. So we have been reading through the Gospel according to Spiritism together, and in the Gospel according to Spiritism, we have been reading Blessed are the poor in spirit. And this chapter is talking about exactly that, right? Jesus' words when Jesus said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit." And people are often confused by what that means. So Spiritism in this book is here to clarify what Jesus meant by those words. And over the last few weeks, we've seen that blessed are the poor in spirit means blessed are those who are humble, right? Blessed who are those who aren't being prideful and don't think they're the best. And we've talked about a couple examples, such as when people, you might be the most important person that's invited to a dinner party, but when you get to that dinner party, if you assume the head of the table, it's going to be embarrassing when they say, oh, actually that spot was reserved for someone else. Can you move to a different spot? Rather than, being prideful and saying, oh, I know surely I'm the best one here, so I'm going to sit at the head of the table, and then being embarrassed having to move, or taking the lesser spot, right, just any other spot, and then having that honor and being moved up and being like, no, you're the most important person, or you're the special guest that deserves the head of the table. So just this simple situation, there's a big difference in attitude and a big difference of how we go about that. So we want to stay humble, and we don't want to be so full of pride that it's hurting us, right? That it's taking up all our good energy. And so we talked a lot about this idea of being humble, right? And being like simple like a child, and realizing that we're not the best at everything, that we're still learning, because we know we're not the best, right? And we'll never be, of course we're striving towards perfection, but we know right now we're not perfect. So we're never going to be absolutely the best right now, but we need to try our best and be humble while we're doing it, realizing that we're going to make mistakes, we're not going to be perfect, but trying to follow God's laws. So to end off this section, this chapter, we have the instructions from the spirits. And so this starts with the section Pride and Humility. My dear friends, may the peace of the Lord be with you. I am come in order to encourage you to follow the good pathway. The humble spirits who in other times inhabited the earth have been commissioned by God to enlighten you. Blessed be the Lord for the grace that he has granted us of being able to help you improve. May the Holy Spirit illuminate me, so helping to make my words understandable, and grant me the favor of being able to put them within reach of all. You who incarnate, who undergo trials and are searching for the light, I pray that the will of God comes to my aid, so that I may make his teachings shine before your eyes. Humility is a virtue much forgotten amongst you. Of many examples given, very few have been followed. However, is it possible to be charitable to your neighbor without being humble? Of course not, because this sentiment reduces mankind to the same level by telling them that they are brothers and sisters who should help one another mutually, which leads them to a state of goodness. Without humility, you are merely adorning yourself with virtues you do not possess. If you used clothes especially for the purpose of hiding some physical deformity, remember, he who saves us, remember his humility, which was so great as to put him above all the prophets. So here it's important where the Spirit says, humility is a virtue most forgotten amongst you, right? And we forget to be humble. We forget that we're all equal. We forget that we're all brothers and sisters, right? We want to put ourselves above other people. And when we put ourselves above other people, it's hard to help them. It's hard to be charitable. And we know that being charitable is what God wants, right? Loving all. So we need to be reminded to be humble, to realize that we're all brothers and sisters, and to help each other as equals, right? Not to help each other as, oh, I'm above you, so I'll help you. Help each other's even if you don't have much to give, right? Help one another. And lately, right, we get so caught up in all of these material things that it's hard to remember to be humble. It's hard to remember to stay true to ourselves in all of this. And this could be in a great form, that someone is very not humble and very prideful, very selfish, or this could be in little everyday things that we do, right, that we think about ourselves before others. So we just have to remember that, right? They're telling us humility is much forgotten amongst us, but let's not forget it, right? Let's bring it back. Let's think about it. Then they continue. Pride is the terrible adversary of humiliation. If Christ promised the kingdom of heaven to the very poor, it was because the great ones of this earth imagined their titles and riches to be recompensed, referred upon them due to merit. So they consider themselves to be of an essence much purer than that of the poor. They judge that the titles and riches are due to them, in the view of which, when God takes them away, they accuse him of injustice. Oh, what a mockery of God's justice! What blindness! Does God then distinguish by means of the body? Is not the physical covering the poor person just the same as that of the rich person? Has the Creator made two kinds of humanity? Everything made by God is wise and great. Therefore, never attribute to him those ideas created by your own prideful minds. So here it's saying, so the opposite of humility is being prideful, right? Being selfish. And when they're saying, when Jesus is promising the kingdom of heaven to the poor, what this means is that to the very poor, it's the people who aren't worrying about material things, who aren't worrying about their riches and their titles. Because the people who are worrying about their riches and their titles, they think that that's going to get them somewhere. But we know that's not true, right? Because that's just a material thing. That material thing's not going to matter in the long run. So when they're saying the poor, it's not actually having no money, but it's understanding that these material things don't matter. So even if you do have a lot of things, or even if you are lucky enough, right, to have all these to have all this wealth or a title or something, realizing that that's not what's most important, realizing that that is just a material thing that doesn't actually have a significant impact on who we are. So we need to remember that, right, that God, everything God created is wise and great. So we know that there's not going to be these silly indifferences. If someone has more money, they're going to be better off in the eyes of God. No, it's about the goodness that we're doing. And these material things are not increasing our chances at getting a spot in the kingdom of heaven, right? It's being humble, doing good things, having charity, loving one another. Those things are going to get us that spot, not having a great title or wealth. And oftentimes we see that those who are rich, like they've told us here, is that those who are rich, sometimes when those things are taken away from them, they feel like, oh my God, why does this happen? I don't deserve this, and all these things, because they don't realize what truly is important, right? And then they think God is unjust, and then that's why sometimes they don't believe in God, because they don't want to believe in something that's better than them and has the power to take everything away from them. Then it continues. O you who are rich, while sleeping beneath your golden ceiling, safe from the cold, you are unaware that thousands of your brothers and sisters, who in God's eyes are worth just as much as you, sleep upon straw? Are not those who go hungry your equal? I know full well that your pride revolts at my work. You agree to give alms, but you never shake their hands. Why so, you will say, I who am the noblest blood, one of the great of this earth, equal to those miserable wretches covered in rags. This is a vain utopian of pseudo-philosophers. If we were equal, why would God have placed them so low, and me so high? It is quite true that your vestments are not alike, But if you undress yourself, what difference would there be between you and them? Nevertheless, those of noble blood would say there is a chemical difference. But till today, no such difference has ever been discovered between the blood of a lord and the common person, or that of a master and that of the slave. Who can guarantee that in the past you too have not been as wretched and unfortunate as him? That you too have not begged for alms? Who can say that one day in the future you will not beg alms of one you despise today? Are riches eternal? When the body extinguishes itself, do they not disappear? After all, the body is nothing more than the perishable covering of the spirit. Ah, cover yourself with little humility. Cast your eyes finally on the reality of the things of this world, on what leads to greatness on the one hand, and humility on the other. Remember, you will not be spared from death, for no one is, nor can your titles be preserved from its blows, which may strike today, tomorrow, or at any hour. If you bury yourself with pride, then I feel sorry for you, because you will be deserving of pity. So here it's just they're addressing those people, right, who are rich and who only think about their money, and who think, how can I possibly be equal to that person that's less than me? But we need to think about those because, right, if you take away all the material things, what's the difference between us, right? Nothing. We're the same. God created us equal, and we're all following our own paths and our own trials, but we have this equal opportunity, right? We're all the same. And if we're acting like this, right, so selfish, so prideful, when we're stripped of all this stuff, all this material stuff, who are we, right? We're this selfish and prideful person. But what about that person that has nothing? When they're stripped of everything they have, what do they have left? They might have these good virtues that they learned, right? Sharing, loving one another, because they don't have these material things to be so prideful of. So they've learned this humility, right? They've learned to be humble. And again, maybe they haven't learned to be humble, but those who have to learn to be humble will be much higher above these people who were wealthy and only thought about themselves. So it's just an important concept to keep in mind, because oftentimes we don't realize, right? We don't consider, oh, we have this. And even for us today, right, having this radio that we can listen to, having the technology to listen to, there's there's still people who don't have that, right? Who don't have this technology, who don't have even plumbing or electricity, and even those basic things that we take for granted are an advantage for us, right? So we can't just take them for granted and say, oh, I'm better than that person. No, we have to realize that we're all the same. And even though we are fortunate enough to be in this situation, what can we do to help those others, right? And to know that we could be there too, right? Because the material things isn't what matters. It's what's on the inside. It's who we are. Then it continues. You who are so full of pride, what were you before you became noble and powerful? Probably you were beneath the lowest of your servants. Therefore, bow down your haughty brows, for God can cause you to fall at the exact moment when you most exalt yourself. All men are equal on the dividend scale of justice. Only virtue marks the distinction in their eyes of God. All spirits come from the same essence, and all bodies are formed from the same matter. Your titles and names modify nothing. They remain in the tomb and in no way contribute to the possibility of enjoying the fortune of the chosen. Their titles of nobleness are based solely on acts of charity and humility. So here it's saying, right, those titles that truly count, the titles that, let's say, God is going to give us, count based off of charity and humility. So whatever title we have that we were born into, or even we earned through in earth, that's not going to matter, right? Because it's not about these material titles or these just these titles of power that don't really mean anything in the sense of charity and humility. What's going to count is charity and humility. So if you want to get that title in the kingdom of heaven, right, we need to perform that charity and humility. Then it continues. Poor creature, you are a mother. Your children suffer. They are cold and hungry, while you, bent under the burden of your cross, go out to humiliate yourself in order to bring them bread. Oh, I bow down before you. How saintly and noble you are. How great in my eyes. Pray and wait, because happiness still is not of this world. But God will grant the kingdom of heaven to the poor and oppressed who have confidence in him. So here it's saying, right, a mother who doesn't have anything but has children who are hungry and cold. Just as just as hungry as that mother is. But the mother goes out to humiliate herself and ask for money, ask for food to feed these children, right? And they're saying how saintly and noble of that person, because you don't have anything, even though you have these children that you're taking care of, and yet you go out embarrassing yourself and realizing that, putting yourself in that humble position, right? That's saying, I don't have anything. I need help. I need food. I need shelter or something, and giving that to the children, right? Not even taking that for herself, giving it to the children and saying that, right? I bow down before you. How saintly and noble you are, right? Because that's hard, right? That's much harder than having money and doing everything, right? It's much harder to have that humility and face those types of things. And they're saying, but God will grant the kingdom of heaven to the poor and oppressed who have confidence in him, right? So those people who, even that mother who but has confidence that God will help her help the children, that's what matters, right? Not how much money you have, not how much material things you have. And a really important line that they say here is, because happiness still is not of this world. So again, even if you're not happy right now, right? We're not completely happy right now. We go through hardships, we go through struggles, but we have to realize that true happiness is not of this world. So we're not going to find that extreme happiness here. So we just have to do our best here, right? Like this mother trying to provide for her children. We just have to do our best here so that that once we get to that kingdom of heaven, we will find true happiness, because we did all the right steps, right? We had charity, we had humility, we had all these things. And that's what's important. But if we don't do that now, then we're still not going to get to the kingdom of heaven, and we're still not going to reach that happiness, right? Eventually we'll get there, but the faster we get there, the better. Then it continues. And you, sweet maiden, who are still but a child, thrust into work and privations, why do you have such thoughts? Why do you cry? Lift up your eyes to God, who is serene and full of pity. He will not abandon you. The sound of parties and the joys of this world make your heart beat faster. You wish to adorn yourself and join in together with the fortune of this sphere. You say to yourself that, like the women you see passing by, free of cares and full of laughter, you too could be rich. Oh, dear child, do not say such things. If you only knew how many tears and what unspeakable pain are hidden beneath those embroidered dresses, how many sobs are muffled by the sound of that noisy orchestra, you would prefer your humble position and pauperism. Maintain yourself pure in the eyes of God, if you do not want your guardian angel to turn from you, covering his face from his white wings, leaving you to your remorse on this planet, without a guide, without support, where you will be lost, and where you will be forced to await punishment in the next world. So here it's addressing a lady who is wishing, right, but still a child, so maybe a teenager, right? Maybe someone our age, and this can be very relatable to us, right? Seeing other people doing all these things. Maybe they're going out to parties, maybe they're going out to expensive vacations or dinners or whatever it may be, and seeing that and wishing, wow, I wish I can be in that group of people, right, who's doing these fun things, who are always laughing, who don't seem like they have any worries, any cares, any struggles. And we often, right, we think that we see those people in our grade, in our school that do that. And we have to think, wow, I wish I could be them, right? They just always seem like they're having a good time. They're always laughing. They seem like they don't have any problems. But they're saying here, don't wish that for yourself, right? Because behind all of that, right, you don't know what they're going through. You don't know how hard it is for them, right? Because they also might be struggling through a lot of things. And like they're saying, you don't know the tears behind those fancy dresses, the pain behind those fancy dresses, right? You don't know what they're going through. And if they are so full of themselves right now, right, there's not great things coming for them afterwards, right, after this life. So they're saying maintain your position, this humble position, because that will lead us to greater happiness in the future, more happiness than we could ever imagine right now, more happiness than just being at some party would bring us. So it's important because it's hard, right? It's hard to see that and to not want that, to not want to be at that level, to not want to be invited to those things or be with those people. But we have to realize that the best is yet to come, right? And it's not going to come in this life, and it's not going to come with material things. So maintain your humble position, be happy what you have, and just continue this charity and humility, and that's what will get us true happiness. All you who suffer injustice from your fellow man, be indulged with the faults of your brothers and sisters, pondering that you are not exempt from guilt. This is charity, and also humility. If you suffer from slander, then bow down your head before this trial. What importance does the slander of this world have for you? If your conduct is pure, cannot God recompense you? Support courageously the humiliations put upon you by man. Be humble and recognize that only God is great and powerful. So here it's important what they're saying also, be humble, right? And be okay with these things that are happening around us, because sometimes it's not, right? Sometimes it's hard to be maybe made fun of, or maybe just to even feel left out in these things. But realize that, again, those people are not the people we need to impress, are not the people who are going to bring us happiness, right? God is going to bring us happiness. So just follow God's laws, right? Do the right things, have charity, have humility, and God will get us to those places, to those good places. These people who might be trying to knock us down, that's not going to matter, right? They're not going to be of great importance to us. So just take it. If people are going to judge you or be mean, it is hard, right? And it's okay to be upset about it, but realize that that's not where you're going to find happiness, right? Fitting in with those people who are being mean is not what's going to find you happiness. Following God's laws, and God will be the one to that's powerful enough to give you that true happiness. Then it continues. Oh dear God, will it be necessary for Christ to return to earth a second time in order to teach his laws, because man has forgotten them? Will he once again have to expel the merchants from the temple for defiling his house, which should have been kept exclusively for prayer? Ah, who knows? O mankind, if God granted this grace once more, would you not reject him yet again? Would you not accuse him of blasphemy because he would be humble? He would humble the pride of modern Pharisees? Perhaps it is even possible that you make him follow the road to Golgotha again. So they're saying, even if Jesus were to come again, wouldn't we still have that rejection of him, right? Wouldn't we still accuse him of things? Because he would be going against things that we still have today, right? Because we're still not perfect, and Jesus' teachings are still there, and we still don't follow them. So people still would be cruel and still would not accept him and all these things. So we have Jesus' teachings, right? We need to take those for granted and not take those for granted and start implementing them into our lives. And this is really important because we've had Jesus' teachings for so long, yet we're still stuck, right? We still haven't found that way to follow that path when he laid it out for us. And that's why the gospel is very important, right? So that it's getting Jesus' words and explaining them in simple terms so that we can understand Jesus' ideas even more clearer And so that's why this is super important, right, for us to read through this. And through Spiritism, where we're not reinventing, right, what Jesus said. We're just clarifying it. And that's why this is the gospel according to Spiritism, right? We're just clarifying these teachings. And we need to try and implement these in our lives so that we become better. And we, one person at a time, right, we become better, and our earth becomes better and evolves more. So it's important. It's hard, right? It's hard to face people that are prideful and are wealthy and have titles and not be jealous, right? Not want what they have. But we must realize that that's not what true happiness is, right? God has what true happiness is. So we need to follow God's laws. We need to be charitable. We need to love one another as our brothers and sisters, and we need to be humble in the end of it. So that's what's really important. And even in this week, try and realize, if you catch yourself being jealous or wanting something that's materialistic, think, okay, what could I do that's better for me, right? What will bring me true happiness? What can I do to follow God's laws this week? So it's important not to just read about it, not to just understand it, but also put it into our daily lives. And I can't do that for you guys, but I hope that you can take this away and try and implement it in the same way that I'm going to try and implement it into my week of how I can be a better person this week. So that's where we'll leave off today, and next week we'll continue off the instructions from the spirits, talking more about how we take these teachings and implement them into our lives. But before we leave off today, I'd like to read our message from the Daily Book of Positive Quotations by Linda Picone for today's date, October 15th. Preserving beauty. The real sin against life is to abuse and destroy beauty, even one's own. Even more one's own, for that has been put in our care, and we are responsible for its well-being. So many beautiful things have been given to us to protect from the earth and all of its creatures, down to our bodies. We may not like how our toes look, or how much we weigh, or how our hair is thinning or going gray, or worse, both. But every movement of our bodies shows us how beautifully designed they are. Even puffs of wind and scents of flowers remind us that we are fortunate to be on this planet, in this universe. The earth is beautiful, and so am I. How can I make personal choices that protect the earth? How can I make choices that protect my own humanity? If at all you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to email me at kardecreaderforteens@gmail.com, and I'll get back to you right away. I'm Bia, and this has been Kardec Reader for Teens. Thank you all for listening. This has been Kardec Radio for Teens. Thank you all for listening.